My dad begged me to fly home for Thanksgiving. After a 6-hour trip, I learned I was a babysitter for their golden child. They mocked me, never expecting one calm decision to end years of control and flip the family dynamic forever. I'm the middle child with an older brother, Matthew, 32, and a younger sister, Tiffany, 26. Growing up, it was clear that Tiffany was the golden child and Matthew was the responsible firstborn, which left me as the family's scapegoat. Every family has dynamics, but mine took it to an extreme level. Tiffany could do absolutely no wrong in my parents' eyes. She was the baby, the princess, the one who got everything handed to her on a silver platter. When she wanted dance lessons, they paid for the most expensive studio in town. When she wanted a car at 16, they bought her a brand new Honda Civic. When she got mediocre grades, they celebrated like she'd won a Nobel Prize. Meanwhile, I worked my butt off in school, got a part-time job at 14, and saved every penny to buy my own used car. When I graduated as valedictorian, my parents couldn't even be bothered to take the day off work for the ceremony because Tiffany had a dance recital the same weekend. Guess which event they prioritized? Favoritism was so blatant that even extended family members would comment on it. My grandmother on my mother's side once told my parents directly that they were being unfair to me, and my mom's response was, "You don't understand. Tiffany needs more support because she's sensitive." Sensitive, that was always the excuse. Tiffany was too sensitive to be criticized, too sensitive to be held accountable, too sensitive to face any consequences for her actions. But I was apparently tough enough to handle being ignored, dismissed, and blamed for everything that went wrong in the house. When Tiffany failed her first year of college and dropped out, my parents immediately started paying for her to attend community college and live at home rent-free. When I graduated from university with honors and a degree in engineering, they told me it was time to start being independent and kicked me out within 2 weeks. I moved across the country for my first job in Seattle. It was scary being so far from everything I knew, but it was also liberating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking on eggshells trying to avoid setting off another family drama explosion. Over the years, I built a successful career in renewable energy engineering. I worked for a startup that developed solar panel technology. And when the company got acquired by a major corporation 3 years ago, my stock options made me financially very comfortable. I bought a beautiful condo in downtown Seattle, traveled to places I dreamed of visiting, and finally felt like I was living my own life. Meanwhile, Tiffany continued living at home, bouncing between part-time jobs and half-hearted attempts at starting various businesses that my parents would fund. She'd gotten married to Kevin 2 years ago, a guy who seemed nice enough but had the backbone of a jellyfish. Within 6 months of the wedding, they'd moved in with my parents because they needed to save money for their future. The future apparently included 2 kids in rapid succession. First came little Emma, now 18 months old, followed by baby Jacob, who's only 6 months old. Tiffany had somehow convinced everyone that being a mom was the hardest job in the world. Despite having my mother basically raise both kids while Tiffany spent her days shopping, getting her nails done, and posting Instagram photos about her blessed mom life. I learned most of this through Facebook and the occasional guilt trip phone call from my mother about how I never visited or called. Every conversation followed the same pattern. Mom would ask how I was doing. I'd share something about my work or life, and she'd respond with, "That's nice, dear. You know, your sister is having such a hard time with the babies. She could really use some help." The expectation was always clear. I was supposed to drop everything and come running to help Tiffany, just like I had our entire childhood. When she needed help with homework, I was expected to do it for her. When she broke something, I was expected to take the blame. When she wanted something, I was expected to give it to her or help her get it. But I'd learned to say no. Living across the country made it easier to maintain boundaries. And my therapist had helped me understand that I wasn't responsible for fixing my family's problems or managing their emotions. This brings me to what happened over Thanksgiving. 3 weeks before the holiday, my dad called me. This was unusual because my dad rarely initiated contact with me. Usually, all communication went through my mom, with Dad occasionally getting on the line to ask how work was going. "Hey kiddo," he said, using the nickname he hadn't called me in years. "How's my successful daughter doing?" Red flag number 1. My parents never called me successful. They'd spent my entire adult life treating my achievements like they were somehow less impressive than Tiffany's basic life milestones. "I'm doing well, Dad. How are you?" "Good, good. Listen, your mom and I have been talking and we really miss you. It's been almost 2 years since you've been home for the holidays." He wasn't wrong. I'd skipped the previous Thanksgiving and Christmas, choosing instead to volunteer at a local shelter and then take a vacation to Costa Rica. It had been the most peaceful holiday season of my adult life. The kids are getting so big, he continued. Emma's walking and talking, and Jacob is just the sweetest little guy. They ask about their Aunt Sarah all the time. This was definitely a lie. Emma barely knew I existed and Jacob was 6 months old, but I let it slide. Tiffany and Kevin really want you to meet the kids properly, Dad said. And your mom has been planning this big family Thanksgiving dinner. She's invited your Uncle Mike and Aunt Linda, the cousins, everyone. It would mean the world to us if you came. The guilt trip was strong.
But what really got me was the tone in his voice.
My dad sounded genuinely emotional, like he really did miss me and want me there. I know it's a long trip, he continued, but we'll pay for your flight. Consider it an early Christmas present. We just want our family together for the holidays. I was surprised by the offer to pay for the flight. My parents had never offered to pay for anything related to my visits home. Usually they'd complain about how expensive flights were and how it was too bad I lived so far away, as if I'd moved across the country specifically to inconvenience them. Please, Sarah, Dad said. I know we haven't always been the best at staying in touch, but you're our daughter and we love you. Let us have this one Thanksgiving with all our kids and grandkids together. I felt myself wavering. Despite everything, I did miss having a family. I missed the idea of belonging somewhere, of having people who were genuinely happy to see me, and Dad sounded so sincere. Okay, I heard myself saying. I'll come for Thanksgiving weekend. Really? The relief and joy in his voice seemed genuine. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Your mom is going to be so happy. Tiffany will be thrilled. We worked out the details and Dad sent me a first-class ticket for the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I was touched by the gesture and started to think that maybe my family had actually grown and changed. Maybe becoming grandparents had given them some perspective on what was really important. The flight from Seattle to Kansas City was smooth, and I found myself actually getting excited about seeing everyone. I'd brought gifts for the kids and a nice bottle of wine for dinner. I was even looking forward to seeing Tiffany and meeting Kevin properly. When I landed, I texted Dad to let him know I'd arrived and was getting my rental car. He texted back, "Can't wait to see you. Come straight to the house." The drive from the airport to my childhood home took about 45 minutes, and I spent the time thinking about how I wanted the weekend to go. I was determined to be positive, to focus on the good moments, and to not let old patterns drag me down. The house looked exactly the same as it had when I left for college 10 years earlier. Same beige siding, same red front door, same overgrown bushes that Dad was always planning to trim but never got around to. I grabbed my suitcase and the bag of gifts and walked up to the front door. Before I could even knock, the door swung open. Dad was standing there with a huge grin on his face, and for a moment, I felt that old childhood comfort of being welcomed home. "There's our world traveler," he said, pulling me into a hug. "How was the flight?" "It was great, Dad. Thanks again for the first-class ticket. You really didn't have to do that." "Of course we did. Your family." I followed him into the living room where I could hear voices and the sound of children. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Sarah," she exclaimed, giving me a quick hug. "You look wonderful. How's Seattle treating you?" Before I could answer, Tiffany emerged from the back hallway carrying baby Jacob. She looked exactly like she did in her Instagram photos. Perfectly styled hair, full makeup, and an outfit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "Well, well, well," she said with a smirk. "Look who decided to grace us with her presence." "Hi, Tiffany," I said, choosing to ignore the dig. "And you must be Jacob." "He's beautiful." I walked over to see the baby, who was indeed adorable, with his chubby cheeks and dark hair. Tiffany shifted him away from me slightly. "Yeah, he's perfect. Not that you'd know since you've never bothered to visit." "I'm here now," I said, maintaining my calm tone. "Where's Emma? I'd love to meet her too." "She's napping," Kevin said, appearing from the kitchen. He gave me a friendly smile and handshake. "She should be up soon. Thanks for coming all this way." Kevin seemed genuinely nice, which made me wonder how he'd ended up with my sister, but then again, she could be charming when she wanted to be. We all sat down in the living room, and I started to relax. The conversation was actually pleasant. Dad asked about my work. Mom wanted to hear about my condo, and even Tiffany seemed to be making an effort to be civil. Then Dad cleared his throat and got that expression on his face that I remembered from childhood, the one that meant he was about to ask for something. "So Sarah," he began, "we have a bit of a situation and we're hoping you can help us out." Here it comes, I thought, the real reason they wanted me home. "Kind of situation?" I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew. Well, you know how hard Tiffany and Kevin have been working with the kids and everything. They really need a break. I looked over at Tiffany, who was scrolling through her phone while Kevin held the baby. She didn't look like someone who'd been working particularly hard. Your mom and I want to take them on a little family vacation, Dad continued. Just for a few days, a chance for them to relax and reconnect as a couple. Sounds nice, I said. Where are you thinking of going? We found this great resort in Colorado. It's perfect for the holidays, skiing, spa treatments, the whole works. We've already booked everything. I was starting to see where this was heading.
And the kids?
Dad smiled like he was delivering good news. That's where you come in. We were hoping you could watch Emma and Jacob while we're gone. It would just be 4 days, and it would mean so much to all of us. I stared at him. You want me to babysit while you all go on vacation? It's not babysitting, Mom chimed in. You're their aunt. It's spending quality time with your niece and nephew. 4 days of quality time with an 18-month-old and a 6-month-old, I said, by myself. You'll be fine, Tiffany said, not looking up from her phone. Emma's pretty easy, and Jacob mostly just sleeps. Plus, Mom has everything organized, feeding schedules, nap times, all that stuff. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They'd flown me across the country under the pretense of a family Thanksgiving. And instead, they wanted to use me as free childcare while they went on a vacation that I wasn't even invited to. When exactly is this vacation supposed to happen? I asked. We leave Friday morning, Dad said. Perfect timing, really. You'll have Thanksgiving with us, and then you can have some bonding time with the kids. And you didn't think to mention this when you invited me? We wanted it to be a surprise, Mom said. We know how much you love children. This was news to me. I'd never expressed any particular love for children, and in fact, I'd been pretty clear over the years that I wasn't interested in having kids of my own. Look, Dad said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. We've spent a lot of money on this trip. The deposits are non-refundable, and Tiffany and Kevin really need this break. What about Matthew? I asked. Why can't he watch the kids? Matthew has his own family to worry about, Mom said. And his kids are older. He's not comfortable with babies. This was also news to me. Matthew had 3 kids and had certainly handled babies before. I looked around the room at my family. Dad was giving me his best reasonable father expression. Mom looked hopeful but nervous. Kevin seemed uncomfortable with the whole conversation, and Tiffany was still on her phone acting like the discussion didn't concern her. I need to think about this, I said. What's to think about? Tiffany looked up from her phone for the first time. You're single, you don't have kids. You have a flexible job. It's not like you have anything better to do. The dismissive tone in her voice triggered something in me. It was the same tone she'd used our entire childhood when she wanted something from me. I have a life, Tiffany. I have plans for my time off. What plans? Sitting in your condo alone? Come on, Sarah. For once in your life, do something for your family instead of just for yourself. The accusation hit me like a slap. I'd spent my entire childhood doing things for this family and my entire adulthood trying to build healthy boundaries around it. I've always done things for this family, I said, my voice rising slightly. I did your homework for you in high school. I covered for you when you snuck out. I gave you my college savings when you needed money for your wedding dress. That was years ago, Tiffany said. I'm talking about now, about being there for your niece and nephew. You're the niece and nephew I've met for a total of 10 minutes. That's your fault for living so far away. I felt the familiar pattern trying to establish itself. Me getting defensive, her playing victim, our parents stepping in to smooth things over by asking me to give in. But I wasn't the same person I'd been when I left home. I need some air, I said, standing up. Sarah, Dad said, don't be dramatic. We're just asking for a small favor. A small favor would be picking up something from the grocery store or helping with dishes. 4 days of solo childcare for 2 babies is not a small favor. I walked outside to my rental car and sat in the driver's seat trying to calm down. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Jenna, in Seattle. How's the family reunion going? I started typing a response, then stopped. How could I even explain this situation? After about 15 minutes, Mom came outside. Honey, can we talk?
I rolled down the window.
What is there to talk about, Mom? I know this isn't what you were expecting, but please try to understand. Tiffany has been so overwhelmed with the babies. She cries all the time. She's not sleeping well. She and Kevin are fighting. She needs this break. Then why didn't you just ask me from the beginning? Why the whole charade about wanting me home for Thanksgiving? Mom looked uncomfortable. We knew you'd say no if we asked directly. And we do want you here for Thanksgiving. Both things can be true. But one thing is clearly more important than the other. That's not fair, Sarah. We love you just as much as we love Tiffany. It was such an obvious lie that I almost laughed. When's the last time you paid for Matthew to fly home? When's the last time you offered to watch his kids so he could take a vacation? That's different. Matthew lives closer. It's different because I'm the one you call when you need something, and Tiffany is the one you do things for. It's been that way our entire lives. Mom was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't feel that way, Mom. It is that way, and I'm done pretending otherwise. I started the car. Where are you going? Mom asked, looking panicked. I'm going to get a hotel room and think about whether I want to stay for Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow. Sarah, please don't do this. Don't ruin the holiday over a misunderstanding. I'm not ruining anything. I'm just choosing not to be manipulated. I drove to the nearest hotel and checked in. The desk clerk looked sympathetic when I said I needed a room for the night, probably assuming I'd had a fight with my spouse or something. Once I was in the room, I called Jenna. That was fast, she said when she answered. How bad was it? I told her the whole story. By the time I finished, she was speechless. They flew you home to be their free babysitter, she finally said, apparently, and they didn't tell you until after you got there.
They wanted it to be a surprise.
Jesus, Sarah, what are you going to do? I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to just fly home tomorrow and be done with all of them forever. But they're still my family, and those kids are innocent in all of this. The kids are innocent, but they're not your responsibility. You didn't choose to have them. Jenna was right, of course, but the guilt was strong. What if Tiffany really was struggling? What if she needed help and I was being selfish? Then I thought about all the times I'd needed help over the years and gotten none. When I was working 3 jobs to pay for college. When I had surgery last year and spent a week recovering alone in my condo. When I got food poisoning on a work trip and ended up in the hospital in Denver, and no one from my family even called to check on me. I ordered room service and spent the evening thinking. By morning, I'd made my decision. I drove back to the house around 10 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day. I could smell the turkey already cooking and could hear Emma's voice coming from the backyard. Dad answered the door. Sarah, thank goodness, we were worried about you. I'm fine, Dad. I just needed some space to think, and I've made my decision about the babysitting situation. His face lit up. Great. I knew you'd come through for us. Your mom has everything written down, feeding times, nap schedules, emergency contacts. Dad, I interrupted, I'm not doing it. His smile faltered. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not watching the kids while you go on vacation. I came here for Thanksgiving and I'll stay for dinner today, but I'm flying back to Seattle tomorrow. But Sarah, we've already paid for everything. The resort, the flights. We can't just cancel. Should have thought about that before you assumed I'd agree. Tiffany appeared in the hallway behind Dad, holding Emma. What's going on? Your sister is being unreasonable, Dad said. She won't watch the kids. Tiffany's face went from confused to angry in about 2 seconds. Are you serious right now? We flew you here. We're paying for your hotel. You're not paying for my hotel. I'm paying for it myself. Whatever. The point is, we need you to do this. It's 4 days, Sarah. 4 days out of your precious, important life. 4 days that you never asked me about. You just assumed I'd drop everything for you like I always have. Because that's what family does, Tiffany yelled, causing Emma to start crying. God, Sarah, could you be any more selfish? I haven't had a break in months. I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. And instead of helping me, you're throwing a tantrum because we didn't ask nicely enough. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm setting a boundary. It's the same thing. Mom appeared from the kitchen looking frazzled. What's all the shouting about? Sarah is ruining Thanksgiving, Tiffany said. She won't watch the kids, so now we can't go on our vacation. Oh, Sarah, Mom said, looking at me with disappointment. Why are you being so difficult? The familiar pattern was reasserting itself, me being painted as the problem, the difficult one, the one who is ruining everything for everyone else. But this time, I didn't take the bait. I'm going to go for a walk, I said. When I come back, I'd like to have a nice Thanksgiving dinner with my family. If you can't manage that, then I'll leave now and drive to the airport. I walked out before anyone could respond. I spent an hour walking around my old neighborhood thinking about all the Thanksgivings of my childhood. The year I spent the entire day in the kitchen helping Mom cook while Tiffany watched TV. The year I carved the turkey because Dad was busy helping Tiffany with a school project that was due the next day. The year I made pumpkin pie from scratch because it was Tiffany's favorite and she pouted when she found out Mom had bought store-bought. When I got back to the house, Uncle Mike and Aunt Linda had arrived with their kids. Matthew was there too with his family. The house was full of people and noise and the smell of turkey and stuffing. "There she is," Uncle Mike said when he saw me. "The successful career woman. I heard you're doing big things with solar energy." "Something like that," I said, accepting a hug from him. "We're so proud of you, honey," Aunt Linda added. "It takes real courage to move across the country and build a life from scratch." It was nice to hear someone acknowledge my accomplishments instead of treating them as an inconvenience. Dinner was actually pleasant. I sat between Matthew's oldest daughter and Uncle Mike, and we had good conversations about work, travel, and books. Tiffany was at the other end of the table, and we managed to avoid interacting directly. After dinner, while the adults were having coffee and the kids were playing in the living room, Dad pulled me aside. "Sarah, I want to apologize for how we handled this situation. I was surprised. Dad rarely apologized for anything. Your mom and I talked about it, and you're right. We should have been upfront about what we were asking. We should have given you a choice." "Thank you for saying that, Dad. But I hope you'll reconsider. Tiffany really is struggling, and we thought this vacation would help her family reconnect. Dad, I'm not responsible for fixing Tiffany's problems. I never have been, despite what you and Mom have always expected from me." "That's not true, Sarah. We've never expected—" "Dad, stop, please. We both know it's true. From the time we were kids, I was expected to accommodate Tiffany, to help her, to sacrifice for her. And I did it because I wanted your approval. But I'm not a kid anymore, and I'm not responsible for managing everyone else's emotions." Dad looked uncomfortable. "We love you both equally. You love us both, maybe, but not equally, and that's fine, Dad. Parents have favorites, but don't ask me to pretend otherwise, and don't ask me to keep sacrificing my own needs to make up for it." Before he could respond, Tiffany appeared in the doorway. "Are you still trying to convince her?" she said to Dad. "Just let it go. She's made it clear that her own comfort is more important than helping her family." "Tiffany," Dad warned, "but she was just getting started." "No, Dad. Let me say this, Sarah. I get that you're successful and important and busy, but these are your niece and nephew. They're innocent kids who deserve to have an aunt who cares about them." "I do care about them," I said quietly. "Really? Because you've seen Emma exactly twice in her entire life. You've never sent a birthday gift, never called to check on us, never shown any interest in being part of their lives. I live 3,000 miles away, Tiffany, and every time I've tried to visit or call, there's been some drama or some crisis that I'm expected to drop everything and help with." "It's not true." "It is true. Remember when I came home for Christmas 2 years ago? I was there for 3 hours before Mom asked me to drive to the store to buy last-minute ingredients because you decided you wanted a different dessert. Remember when I called to congratulate you on your engagement and you spent the entire conversation complaining about how I hadn't offered to pay for part of the wedding?" Tiffany's face was getting red. "You're being ridiculous. Am I? Or am I just finally standing up for myself, standing up for yourself? You're abandoning your family. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just refusing to be the family doormat anymore." That's when Tiffany really lost it. "You know what, Sarah? You're pathetic. You're 30 years old. You live alone in some city where you don't have any real friends. You've never been married. You'll probably never have kids. And the only thing you have to show for your life is a job that you think makes you better than the rest of us." The room went dead silent. I could hear Uncle Mike and Matthew's conversation stop in the next room. "And you know what else?" Tiffany continued, her voice getting higher. "Nobody wants you here anyway. Mom and Dad only invited you because they felt sorry for you. I only wanted you to watch the kids because I figured since you have no life of your own, you might as well make yourself useful to people who actually matter." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Not because what she said was particularly clever or cutting, but because of the venom in her voice. This was what she really thought of me. But instead of crying or getting defensive, I felt something else, clarity. "Thank you, Tiffany," I said. She looked confused. "What?" "Thank you for finally being honest about how you feel about me. It makes what I'm about to tell you so much easier." I walked over to my purse and pulled out an envelope. "I came here with a surprise for the family," I said. "I wasn't going to announce it until tomorrow, but I think now is the perfect time." Dad looked curious. Mom appeared in the doorway, probably having heard the yelling. Matthew and Uncle Mike came in from the living room. "What kind of surprise?" Mom asked. I opened the envelope and pulled out a document. "I've been looking for a way to give back to the community, and I decided to start a scholarship fund for students studying renewable energy engineering. I'm donating $500,000 to establish it." There were gasps around the room. Uncle Mike whistled low. Matthew said, "Holy shit, Sarah, but I wasn't done. I'm also buying a house here in Kansas City, not to live in, but to turn into a transitional housing facility for single mothers who are trying to get back on their feet." More shocked expressions. "And finally," I said, looking directly at Tiffany, "I'm setting up trust funds for Emma and Jacob, $50,000 each, to be used for their education when they turn 18. Tiffany's mouth fell open. "You're what?" "I'm setting up trust funds for your children. College funds, essentially, because, unlike what you just said, I do care about them and I want them to have opportunities." The room was completely silent. "But here's the thing," I continued. "The trust funds come with conditions. The money can only be used for education, college, trade school, whatever they choose. And if at any point before they turn 18, you or anyone else in this family tries to manipulate me, guilt-trip me, or treat me the way you've treated me today, the funds will be donated to charity instead." "Sarah," Dad started. "I'm not finished." I looked around the room. "I love you all. I really do. But I'm done being the family scapegoat. I'm done being the one who's expected to sacrifice and accommodate and fix everyone else's problems. I'm done being treated like I'm less important than everyone else." I put the document back in the envelope. "Tiffany, you want to know why I've never been married or had kids? It's because I spent so much of my life trying to earn love from people who had already decided I wasn't worth it. I focused on my career because it was the only place where my efforts were appreciated and rewarded." Tiffany was crying now, but I couldn't tell if it was from guilt or just shock. "But I'm not pathetic, and I'm not lonely. I have a good life. I have friends who value me, work that fulfills me, and financial security that I earned through my own efforts. I don't need this family's approval anymore." I walked toward the front door. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, her voice small. "I'm going back to Seattle. Flight isn't until tomorrow, but I think it's better if I leave now." "Sarah, wait," Dad said. "Let's talk about this. Let's work it out." "There's nothing to work out, Dad. You all made your positions very clear. Tiffany especially." I looked at my sister, who was still crying. "For what it's worth, Tiffany, I hope you get the help you need, and I hope someday Emma and Jacob will understand why their college funds came with strings attached. Don't leave like this," Mom pleaded. "It's Thanksgiving." "It is Thanksgiving," I agreed. "And I'm thankful that I finally have the self-respect to walk away from people who don't value me." I picked up my suitcase, which I'd never unpacked. "The trust fund paperwork will be mailed to you next week," I said. "My lawyer will handle everything. And just so we're clear, this is the last time I'll be coming home for a holiday until I receive genuine apologies from everyone in this room." "Sarah," Matthew said, speaking up for the first time, "I think you're overreacting." I turned to him. "Really? When's the last time Mom and Dad asked you to cancel your plans to watch someone else's kids? When's the last time they flew you across the country under false pretenses?" He didn't answer. That's what I thought. I walked out the front door and loaded my suitcase into my rental car. Through the window, I could see my family standing in the living room, all of them looking shocked and confused. As I drove away, my phone started buzzing with calls and texts. I turned it off and drove straight to the airport. I was able to change my flight to a red-eye that left at midnight. I spent the 5 hours before departure at an airport bar thinking about what had just happened. For the first time in my adult life, I had stood up to my family completely. I hadn't tried to smooth things over or find a compromise. I hadn't accepted blame or tried to manage their emotions. I had simply told the truth and walked away. It should have felt liberating, but mostly I felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that my family's love had always come with conditions. Sad that I'd wasted so many years trying to earn something that was never going to be freely given. But underneath the sadness was something else: peace. For the first time in my life, I had chosen myself first, and that felt pretty good. The flight back to Seattle was quiet, and I spent most of it looking out the window at the lights of cities passing below. When I landed, I took a taxi to my condo and sat on my balcony, watching the sunrise over the city. My phone had 47 missed calls and 23 text messages. I deleted them all without reading them. Over the next few days, the calls and messages continued. I blocked my parents' and Tiffany's numbers, but kept Matthew's unblocked in case there was a genuine emergency. A week later, he texted, "I think you should know that Mom and Dad canceled their Colorado trip. Tiffany's been crying for days. Maybe you could call them." I responded. I told them what my conditions were for re-establishing contact. The ball is in their court. He didn't text back. 3 weeks later, I got a call from my lawyer. The trust fund paperwork had been signed and returned. Along with it was a handwritten note from my mother. "We're sorry, we love you, please call when you're ready." And it wasn't much, but it was a start. I'm not ready to call yet. Maybe I will be someday. But for now, I'm focusing on my own life, my own happiness, my own peace of mind. And you know what? It feels pretty good to finally put myself first.